Access to safe, reliable water is something every community depends on.
But across the country, rivers are undergoing strain from pollution, development, and extreme weather. And topping this year's most endangered list from the nonprofit American Rivers is the Potomac. Our vital waterway is facing serious threats, most recently from the massive sewage spill earlier this year.
To help us understand what's happening along the Potomac River, we're joined now by Betsy Nicholas, president of the Potomac Riverkeeper Network. Betsy, thanks for joining us. Do you feel that there's any bias here? For example, if the sewage spill hadn't happened just earlier this year, would the Potomac still be considered among the most endangered?
Yes, in fact, we were already under discussions about having it as part of the top 10 endangered rivers at the end of last year. So we were gathering information based primarily on the impact of water withdrawals and then water quality concerns about data centers. And when, unfortunately, the gigantic sewage spill happened, that moved the Potomac up from just being part of the list of 10 to being the number 1 in the nation.
Betsy, the report talks a lot about aging infrastructure and the lifespan of sewage line in our area. What can you tell us about the threat of future incidents like that, like the future spills?
Yeah, actually, that is a very concerning area and something that we're hoping to make a little bit of lemonade out of the lemons of what's been happening to the Potomac River by getting more attention to this issue of aging infrastructure and the failure to properly invest and plan for the necessary maintenance and upgrades over time. A 60-year-old sewage line is going to be vulnerable to problems and really should have been inspected and upgraded sooner. And we actually know from previous reporting from the Washington Post identifying that there were issues known at least 8 years ago, and it took so long to really start moving on those that this entire collapse happened.
And Betsy, you mentioned the impact of data centers, and we've reported a lot on data centers in our area and the strain they put on the electric grid, on neighborhoods and communities, but a lot of people probably don't think about the impact on our water. Can you explain why data centers are a factor here?
Yes, absolutely. The data centers have to keep a very stable temperature because of all of the super sensitive high intensity computers in there and chips. And so they get hot when they're working, just like your laptop or your phone or anything like that. If they overheat, they're not going to be functional. And data centers are set up to use water for their cooling. So that obviously superheats the water, but pulls a lot of water out of the Potomac River, as much as maybe 2 to 4 million gallons a day of water could be used for cooling. But then once it's used and goes through the process, it comes in contact with everything within that center. So obviously you're not putting it right through the computer cards, right? But the pipes and stuff that it's going through could have chemicals and toxins in it that right now we don't really know what could be there. But there's also a lot of diesel fuel on site for backup generators. And picking up that diesel fuel or any leaks from that diesel fuel, it could get washed and discharged right into the river system.
So Betsy, now that we know the problems, what can we do as a community to address them?
We need to be planning for maybe not worst case scenario, let's hope we never get there, but that issues and problems are going to happen. So in terms of developing these data centers, we need to look at how we can minimize the impacts to our drinking water systems and mitigate any possible problems that would happen before they happen, instead of like the Potomac Interceptor issue of dealing with it after it happens. It's going to cost us much less money and make the environment much safer for all of us, particularly those who depend on the Potomac for drinking water, if we think about the impacts to drinking water up front and make sure that we're developing in the most ecologically sensitive manner.
Absolutely. We know that protecting the Potomac is vital to our communities. Betsy Nicholas, the president of the Potomac Riverkeeper Network, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.